Okay, this video is to address a scenario that's been reported by at least a few of our integrator customers. And what you're seeing on the screen right here is the scenario at hand, and that is where we may start off with a given company in the company list, and then at some point in time we suddenly see that same company ID repeated with a number 1 after it, and sometimes there's even a number 2, and etc. So the purpose of this video is to explain this. And first off, this is not being caused by integrator. There's absolutely no code, no logic within integrator that would allow it to ever append a sequential digit to the end of a company ID in order to create a new record. That simply is not even possible. But rather than taking my word for it, what I'm going to do is go through a series of steps within just Prolog, not using integrator, that reproduces this scenario, and then I'll offer some explanation as to what's going on behind the scenes and potentially how you could resolve it so it doesn't happen again. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is create a couple of Prolog databases. So I'm going to go into Prolog Administrator. Okay, I'll log on. Okay, so I want to create a Prolog database A. Let's call that database A. Okay, now I'll create a database B. Okay, we're done here for now, so I'm just going to minimize administrator. And now let's go into Prolog. Okay, I'm going to create a connection to my two different databases, so we'll just name this one database A again. Oops. Okay, so there was my connection for database A. I'll add another one for database B. Okay, now let's go open up database A. Alright, and I'm going to go ahead and create a project in this database so that I can do some work here. So I'll click on Add. We'll use the default template for this, since I don't have a template yet. And we'll just call this project A1. Alright, and we'll open the project. Okay, and I'm going to go into admin and into company setup. And I'm going to create a company. This is going to be company ABC. We'll call it ABC Construction. Short name is ABC. And type of company is subcontractor. So I filled in all the required fields. Click on Save. Save new entry. Okay, so now I have database A with one project and one company in it. Now I'm going to go over to database B and do the same thing. So I'll add a project, use the default template. We'll call this project B1. Okay, and again we'll open this project. Again we'll go to company setup. Again, we'll print in company ABC. And save. Okay, now I'm going to go back to, actually what I should say, I'm going to go back to Prolog Administrator, And using database A, I'm going to create a project template. So I'm going to go to Project, Create Template, give it a name, okay, and I'll click OK. And thus I'm selecting this is actually Project A, or A1 in that database. Okay, so now I have a project template based on Project A1 from Database A, and it contains all the project data, which isn't much, and the one company record as well. Now I'm going to go back to Prolog Manager, and I'm still in Database B. I'm going to go into my Portfolio Manager, and I'm now going to create a new project, and this time I'm going to use the template that I created from Database A. And we're going to call this project B2. Okay, so it's creating the project based on the data that is from the template that again came from Database A, and that includes the company information. And you might have noticed when I set up those two companies, they both have a company ID of ABC. All the information is nearly identical, except I did purposely enter the company name slightly differently in Database B. I'll explain that in a moment. Okay, so now that project has been created, I'm going to go right back into Company Setup, click List, and sure enough, I now have ABC and ABC1. So that is where those records are coming from, is a process like this or similar to this, where we've moved some data in or out of a database, maybe through an export process or through a manual entry and then importing from a template, something of that nature. Now I'm going to explain a little bit about kind of what's going on behind the scenes and what's leading to the creation of this extra record. Okay, so to get started, I'm going to go ahead and open up SQL Management Studio, just so we can look at the data sort of behind the scenes, what's in the actual database. Okay, I'll resize this window a little bit so it fits on the screen better. Okay, let's take a look first at Database A, and I'm going to look in the company table. Okay, I'll close this window so we can see more columns. Okay, so we can see that we have one record. The company ID is ABC, that's the primary key. There's the company name and whatnot. If I scroll to the very end, the very last column, I see this value called GUID, that's Globally Unique Identifier. And every company record is assigned a totally unique ID within this database. Okay, so that's the first thing to recognize. And next I'm going to go out and locate that template file that we created. And that's going to be located underneath program data, MPS Prolog Manager, right there. Of course, you can put that file wherever you want, but that's just the default location. Okay, this file, although it has a DTP extension, it's actually a Microsoft Access database. So if you temporarily rename it as such, then when I double click on it, it'll actually open in Microsoft Access and you can see the contents of that file. And what we'll find here is that I see all the same tables that I see in SQL Management Studio, including the company table, and I see the data that was put into that table. So this is allowing me to see all the data that's actually part of that template. Again, there's the company ID, the name, etc. If we go to the very end, there's that same GUID that we talked about earlier. Can't really see the whole value for some reason. So I'm going to expand it. But it's same value as what we saw in SQL Management Studio. that just got exported to the template file. Okay, so that's an important fact to know about. Now, when I go back to Management Studio and I open up Database B, I look at the company table. Okay, and we look at, and this record number 1 is the first one that I manually created. Notice that the GUID is different, not the same GUID, because every time you create a new record, a new company record, it's assigned a brand new globally unique identifier. So what happens when we import, or rather create a new project from this template? Well, basically, Prolog wants to make sure that we don't accidentally create duplicates, but we also don't accidentally overwrite something that we shouldn't. And so basically the logic, I believe, is that the software, as we're creating the new project from the template, it sees the fact that in Database B there's already a company ABC, and the name is different than what we saw in the template. In one case I have ABC Construction, in the other case ABC Construction Inc. Same company ID, but the software is going to look at this and say, hold it, are these actually the same companies or not? And the way that it makes that determination is it looks at the global unique identifier. If that global unique identifier matches, then it assumes that it's the same company and does not try to create a new record or do anything special like that. But if the global unique identifier does not match, and the company name doesn't match, then it assumes that that is a different company. However, we have this issue that we have to resolve in that we can't have two companies with the same company ID. So Prolog's response to that is, let's just add a number to it. So it becomes ABC1. And if we look in the database, sure enough, that's what happened, is the imported company, the one that came from the template, became ABC1. So that is essentially what's happening when we have these companies popping up with these numbers appended to the end of them. Is we've traced this down with companies that we've worked with and identified that it is definitely coming from the use of a project template, and in that project template there's company data, and the GUIDs on those companies, for whatever reason, does not match the GUIDs in the company table in the database that they're creating the project in. And then again, if the names are slightly different, then it just creates records. So a couple of solutions to this. One is you could simply create a new project template from your current database, and that way the new project template will have all of the GUIDs matching what's in your current database. So then you shouldn't have any issues because the GUIDs will be the same. Another potential solution, and this may or may not be supported by Meridian, so I'll qualify it with that. But another potential solution is to not have the company data part of your template. So you could simply open up the table, as I've done here in Microsoft Access, and remove all of those rows. And that can be done simply as select all rows, tap your delete key, let it delete all rows, and close the file. And then when you're done, you would just go back and rename that MDB file back to DTP. And now it's a template again, minus the company data. So if there's no company records, there's no possibility that it's going to find a mismatch and want to create a record. So that is the solution to the issue, or two possible solutions to the issue. Hopefully this has been helpful in understanding what the cause of the issue was, and also resolving the mystery behind it, in that it is not in any way tied to Integrator. It is definitely tied to using project templates and some company data that doesn't match between the template and your current database.